Rejoice, Bannerlords, for once again you are in the presence of greatness. It was he who guided and inspired you, and the gods have blessed you again. For the great Bobo Khan has come, and he has come to remind you why it is we conquer. Why do we crush our enemies over and over again? We do it for the sweet loot. You turn the loot into money, and then you use the money to buy more kick-ass. That's why there's nothing a conqueror loves more than loot. Hell, Bobocon likes to break his loot up into powder and then dive into his harem. And let's not forget that most sacred Khazate currency. Horses. More loot equals more horses. And you can just see the fields full of sweet, sexy horses. Just a little slice of Khazate heaven. And even though you have befriended bandits, sacked caravans, and burned villages, there is yet another arrow to add to your quiver of knowledge. Let Bobocon show you a way to rapidly level your roguery for those sinister enough to survive the streets. I'll just start out by saying alleys are very similar to other mechanics in Bannerlord. They are in the game and they do work, but they could be much better. One of the great frustrations the Bannerlord community has with Bannerlord is with what it could be if its systems were more fleshed out. Tailworlds is saying that they're back on track now, but promises and all that. We'll see. Alleys are in the game, and they do serve a vital function, especially for the great Bobo Khan, who always likes to encourage you in that high roguery build. This is one of my favorite builds in the game. I'm not going to deep dive into roguery or why I love it so much. I do all of that in this video here. If you're curious, TLDR, you get a shit ton of battle loot. There's other benefits, but that's the main one. People always say battle loot doesn't matter when you have smithing, and that's true if you're talking about money or weapons. Smithing will give you more money than you could ever spend, and it will give you the best weapons in the game. However, you still have to think about ranged weapons like bows and crossbows. Arrow types, also included in more battle loot, are more horses and war horses, which is very nice if you're running a full horse archer army. And then also food, and there's a whole host of ways food can play into an awesome campaign. And this is the main purpose and the best way to use alleys is to quickly level your roguery. If you're not leveling your roguery up, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. But if you are going to level roguery, I find alleys essential to blowing it up as quick as possible. You don't have to load into a town to check out the alley situation. You can just highlight the gang leaders and it'll tell you right there under their name, Backstreet 5. That means she owns the Backstreet alley and they've got 5 thugs. And over here, the Anvil, he owns the clearing and he stuffed 5 guys in there. If you load into a town, you can hold your Alt button down and it'll bring up all the icons for places of interest in the town. And do you see that red hood with the dagger icon right there? That's an alley. And as we close in on it, you'll see there it is, the clearing. So that's the clearing alley. Behind it is the Backstreet alley. And then sometimes there's a waterfront alley as well. The few things you'll notice are, number one, 1 on 5 is not great odds. Unless you're Achilles with a rusty iron saber, it's better to bring some friends to help you. The other issue is, once we take it over, we're going to need a companion and a particular type of companion to help run our alley once we take over it. So my suggestion is get your party up and running, get your scout, get your medic, get your steward. Once you've got yourself a main core party that you can use to hunt down bandits and doing all that early game work, now's the time to go out and get your companions. I don't think it will shock you to learn that the companions you need to run your alleys need to have roguery skill. And to be specific, they need to have at least 30 roguery skill. Over here on the fandom website, you can find a suffix and attributes chart, And you can come down here and you can sort companion titles by whatever skill you're looking for. So if I want a companion high in roguery, the highest are going to be the robber or the leopardess, and then you'll see it just goes down from there. The black, the butcher, the hyena, all the way down to 40. They also cannot have the merciful trait. So here's where you got to be careful, because you recruit this guy and take him all the way over to the alley you want to take over. You win the battle, you try to install him, but it won't let you because he's merciful. So at least 30 roguery and no merciful trait. They can have any trait in the game except for merciful. A great way to quickly find a companion you need is just to come down here on the left side and just say, I want a wanderer. And then you can come over here and you can go down and it will show you who's all on the map. And then when you click on them, it'll tell you where they've been last seen, which is typically where they are. And look at our boy right here, huh? Close-fisted, devious, cruel, 110 roguery. He's a gem. He's just what we need. And look at that nose. It's a nose you put in marble. Give him a little coin, and now he's on the team. Probably the most important thing about alleys is that the fight to take them over is done in civilian clothing. You can't go marching through town in all your war gear without alerting all the guards. And so we're going to have to slide into some civilian clothing, which isn't nearly as armored, but some clothing is better than others. You can see you can wear all of this into combat, but if we come over here to civilian clothing, only certain gear is available. So all these heavily armored shoulder pieces and heavily armored chest pieces, you can't wear any of that around as civilian clothing, which I kind of like, to be honest. But you'll see like these leather vambraces here, that's 12 armor, so I throw those on. This is the best one I found in Q8 lands, and one of the fun things about having high roguery is very often you can get a legendary version of some civilian clothes. So you can actually have some pretty decent civilian armor. So just remember, no matter how badass your war gear is, when it comes to that initial fight you're taking over the alley, we're going to be in our civvies. So make sure you're as geared as you can be. Do remember that the civilian restriction doesn't just apply to armor, but to weapons as well. Some weapons you can carry as a civilian and some you can't. If you're a god at the combat, it may not matter at all, but if you're like me and you're kind of streaky, where sometimes you do all right and sometimes you just suck, having a little extra gear can really help on these alley takeovers. I just want to point out, when it comes to crafting weapons, some of them will come with this civilian icon on them, and that lets you know that if you craft it, you could equip that as your civilian weapon. And so that's the basics of alleys, and just some tips to help the process go a little smoother. We've got our rogue companion here, and we've got a couple other dudes going to help us out. And look here, the Northern Empire just took over McKeb, and that knocked everything down a little bit. You can see Harry here, she's got everything. The back street, the clearing, and the waterfront, and the anvil. He's losing power quick. He'd probably get whacked soon. So if we want an alleyway, we're going to have to challenge Harry and her gang. And look, it's perfect night for it. It's snowy, so the guards are all huddled up around flames. Nobody's walking around in this cold. The gust of air going to drown out any sound, right? This is the perfect time to make our move. So what do we need to do? First, we tell our guy, I want you to gather up all the boys, and I'm going to go down here and do a little recon. Something to be aware of in these takeover battles is that they function just like hideouts, where if you, the main character, get knocked out, you fail. So you have to be very careful, because you want to kill as quickly as possible to get the numbers advantage, but you also don't want to get knocked out, because then you fail the attempt. All right, my boys just showed up, and now it's game time. We're going to pull out our weapons and dance at each other and shake our hips like men until we dance them off of the thing. It's going to look like West Side Story, and you better believe Oklahoma can move those hips. Oh, you don't even. And then I'm going to tell him, I don't take orders from you, and now that's crossing lines, but he's going down. Oh, that's a civilian. Don't kill that guy. There it is. Good job. Okay, now we got to ditch the bodies, put them in those barrels or something. And here it says, you've cleared it out. Do you want to take it over? And we're like, hell yeah. And here it's going to say, select a companion. And see, these two guys can't, right? Because, like I told you, they have to have 30 or higher roguery. But the butcher, he can do it. And just like that, all nice and clean, we've taken over an alley. Okay, there's been a little bit of power shakeup in the back streets of McKeb, and old Harry can know we're coming for her. You'll see here, when I pull up what my companions are doing, the butcher is leading an alley at McKeb. Now look at this new icon. The gist of criminal rating is the more crimes you commit, the higher this number goes. And as it increases, the faction that you're committing crime against will eventually ban you from their towns and villages. And then if you continue to push it too high, they'll declare you an enemy of the state, declare war on you, hunt you down. So what qualifies as criminal activity? Well, a lot of quests you do for criminals, that's one thing. Also, attacking caravans and villagers, that is going to dramatically increase your criminal rating. And you're going to start seeing some consequences very soon. And when you look at the details of this rating, you can see that owning an alley in a town gives you 0.5 a day, but my daily is -1. So just owning an alley is not going to push up your criminal rating. Once you get your alley established, go ahead and get back to causing mayhem. You'll see here I'm only making 36 a day off that alley. You don't make that much money, and you could probably get a lot more use out of that companion doing something else. But when it comes to leveling roguery, you're going to get a ton of points. So just for taking over the alley, you'll get a ton of points. And then as you're out rolling around, eventually you'll get a message that pops up that says, hey, your alley, it's getting moved in on. All you need to do is go back to the town. You come in here, you click on handle the problem, and here we have Harry trying to move in on my territory. And I'm like, bring it on, lady. Now, the great thing about defending your alley is, as you can see, you get to defend it in your battle outfit. And look, right there, 10 skill points in roguery. And so you get that chunk of roguery for taking over an alley. You get a steady flow of roguery XP every day that you have an alley. And then when you come to defend your alley, you get another chunk of roguery. Number and quality of troops that you place in your alley will determine how often it's attacked and how long you have to get back to defend it. So if you fill it up with really high troops, it's not going to get attacked as much, and you're going to have up to 8 days to get back and defend it. I always like to put bandit troops in here, and in particular, I always like to put bandit troops with shields because alley defense battles are done in your battle gear, and the enemy gang will always be just a bunch of thugs. And so your units having shields in that battle is a major advantage. My suggestion is don't fill your alley up that much. You want it to get attacked because you get a huge chunk of roguery skill for defending your alley. So you want them to get attacked as often as possible. And then, of course, you can always just abandon the alley and then grab your companion and move them to another town or whatever. So clearly by itself, this game mechanic isn't great for making you money. However, if you get an alley up and running and then you get another alley up and running, the combination of those two together are going to level your roguery very quickly. Once your roguery maxes out, one major battle will pay for 3 months worth of troop wages. I mean, it doesn't even matter. I saw it suggested online that you can clear out the other gangs in town if you don't want them to try to move in on you. I would recommend against that. The truth is we want some action. So don't worry about clearing out the other gangs. So now, all of you starter cons that wish to become as dashingly rogalicious as the great Bobo Khan have the knowledge you need to run the streets so that you can get so much loot that you can dive into it like Scrooge McDuck. Remember the motto of the great Bolden Horde. Through loot, we conquer. Oklahoma out.